fundamental problem with girlboss narratives is that they tell women that only one type of woman can be successful. The type of woman who only focuses on themselves at the detriment of everyone around them. The type of woman who cuts other women out in the workplace, and the type of women who only got where they are today because they emulated masculinity. What's our stance in this debate today? Two things. Firstly, we obviously regret the popularity of girl-boss narratives. What do these look like? This looks like the glorification of figures such as Thatcher, such as Hillary Rodham Clinton, and such as Miranda Priestley in The Devil's Wears Prada. That's like the things that these individuals have in common is that they tend to focus almost exclusively on themselves. They tend to be corporatists, they tend to be assertive, and they tend to be cutthroat. The thing about these traits is that they're all inherently traditionally associated more with masculinity, so they're not collaborating with people in the workplace to get where they are today. They're being really exclusive and only focusing on themselves. What do we think the likely counterfactual is on our side of the house? We think that we're going to get a feminist narrative that's more promoting the interests of all women, regardless of how they present, for reasons. First, we already think that this is that we see a strong yearning to a shift towards this, and that there is that demand there. Secondly, we tell you that this is going to be more successful because all women can engage with it. Even if you're a stay-at-home mum, you can still engage with this narrative. You're not going to be able to engage with their narrative. Thirdly, we just tell you that we get better collective action, which you're more able to collaborate because it isn't that focused on the individual. But no, they cannot come up here and stand for that because that's mutually exclusive. Because there's only a limited amount of narratives that can be spun about what good women look like, and you have to have one of our limited social capital. We're going to win this debate today by showing that you undermine getting change for the most vulnerable women on their side of the house. Three arguments. Firstly, they undermine feminist narratives. Secondly, we uplift women in the workplace, and Tino will split to you about how feminist movements in conservative countries. But starting off about how this undermines feminist narratives. So the starting point for this argument is that the feminist movement should represent all women for reasons. Firstly, we just tell you that by virtue of the nature of the movement itself, it should represent all women, especially those women who aren't traditionally uplifted by society, people who don't have these more cutthroat masculine traits. Secondly, we just tell you that no matter how you present, the more masculine and feminine traits in feminism need to be shown as equal, because that shows that all women and all men can present in any way they want to without fear of judgment there. And finally, we just tell you it's the founding principle of feminism that to have this equality, you need to you can't just stand for a small sect of women. Okay. Why do they undermine feminist narratives on their side of the house? For reasons. Firstly, girl bosses necessarily emulate men and the actions of men to get to positions of power. Why is this? This shows that there's one route to go down and do this because they are going to be more aggressive in meetings. They're going to cut people off. They're not going to collaborate. That's really bad because at the point at which these women have to act like men in order to succeed. That promotes the subconscious belief that men somehow are superior and these traits are better, and that you're not empathy, collaboration, these types of really important things aren't actually important. Second, we tell you that this girl-boss narrative buys into the existing masculine power structures that work in the workplace. This looks like people like Margaret Thatcher coming in and not really changing things up because she wants to she benefits from that, but then you're not actually going to get that reform in that workplace in those political structures on their side of the house. Thirdly, this necessarily makes only some women acceptable because when you glorify a certain proportion of women and say you are the best ones, you are the people we like in society, that's really bad because every other woman who doesn't fit into the narrative of walking down Fifth Avenue in her impossibly tall Louboutins is told that she's not good enough, that she's hasn't fulfilled this narrative, and that she's that she's not going to be able to compete with these her fellow women who are girl bosses, and it just shows that this is especially important for uniquely vulnerable women who stay at home, who want in the arts, not in this business space. Finally, we just tell you that this girl boss narrative and this glorification is just unattainable for a vast majority of people. We can't all run our own law firm. We can't all be millionaires and billionaires. That's really destructive because at the point at which you're not able to fulfill that actualization of yourself, that's really harmful because it degrades your self-worth. women, they can like work hard and just get there. That's like not, it's not the like way that necessarily is. You need other change. What's the comparative? We're gonna get better like feminist change because we're gonna lift up all of the women. Because we're gonna value things like empathy in the workplace. This is really important because we need that widespread social and political buy-in by all types of women in order to get that change, in order to get things like more parental leave, in order to work together as like as a movement. 3 outcomes here. First, we improve the social view of women. That's really important because like on a day-to-day basis, that you're more able to like be empathetic, collaborate without like fear of judgment or being seen as lesser. But secondly, we just tell you that like wider issues are discussed which don't necessarily pertain to these like girl bosses, and then you have things like paid parental leave, which these girl bosses like is kind of antithetical to because they're valuing career over lives. Finally, we just tell you that it's religious the feminist movement at the point at which you only focus on one person. I'll take it here.
Paid parental leave is one of the best pathways to facilitate women advancing themselves in their own lives and their own careers. Why is that antithetical to girl boss culture?
Okay, girl boss culture dictates that career and your individual like economic interests go above all else. That means you're not going to take time off work, take 10 years off your career to have a family. You're never going to be able to get those types of reforms on their side of the house. Now on this idea about how we uplift women in the workplace. The starting point for this is that the workplace are hostile to women, especially those who are less assertive. 2 reasons. Firstly, we just take the masculine work constructs. They bring the people who have like made the workplaces to work for them. Anything that's like not going against that is like not going to work. And secondly, just we tell you like structural barriers, like the gender pay gap, things like harassment, tend to like impact things like women who tend to be on like lower level jobs. 4 reasons. 5 reasons why we uplift women in the workplace. Firstly, they necessarily have like an emphasis on an individual and that like competitive and like trading people off against each other. That's really harmful. If you're not going to get that collective action and that collaboration, the point where women don't see themselves as that kind of collective and will just see themselves as individuals. That looks like things like not pushing for like reforms when it comes to like harassment policies in the workplace. Secondly, we tell you that like glorifying like working really, really long hours and time is not necessarily really good because you're just like when you're working 100 hours a week, you're not able to like properly take time to yourself, get the right amount of sleep, and actually pursue your own interests. This is what the girl boss narrative mandates, and you're not able to fulfill that. That's really like harmful. Thirdly, we just tell you that like you're less likely to uplift other women because these girl bosses necessarily have to like try and fit in and be one of the boys because that's like how they've gone to where they are. That looks like things like not advocating for like female candidates when it comes through on like interviews because you don't want to be seen as that like woman playing identity politics and undermine your own interests. Finally here, we just tell you that like we're more able to get focused on the structural barriers that prevent women from succeeding in the workplace rather than just saying, oh, work hard, you'll get there. We propose.
I'd like to thank the speaker for their speech, and I'll invite up the first speaker for the negating team to open their team's case.
The pursuit of individual success for women is something which has been limited by society and the patriarchy throughout the fight for equality in recent history. The girl boss narrative and its popularity has provided a direct incentive for countless women to actively pursue a higher place in a society which often fails to accept them. So today the affirmative team is presenting the case, suggesting that the traits often seen by those in positions of power and influence will be forced upon women to the detriment of them all, and therefore women will be empowered as they don't inherit masculine traits and will therefore lead better lives, right? So the principal framework of our debate and how we can win this is by proving how the girl boss narrative has provided a method in which women can prove themselves suggested to us that women are forced to cut out others in a selfish pursuit of themselves and their own success. Well, first of all, we believe that this will exist on both sides of the house. Like, even without the girlboss initiative, it's just going to be reduced numbers of women who will pursue such positions, right? And therefore trades. And that's only going to be aggravated when they pursue an unrecognized path in which they're actively frowned upon, which isn't recognized, all of these supposedly masculine, toxic traits which women will inherit will only be aggravated on their side of the house when there's no girl boss, no initiative itself, which is actually recognized by others whatsoever. And also we've been told that girl boss intentions aren't actually attainable by the first speaker, right? And there's this exact attitude which prevents women from pursuing higher purposes within society in the first place. Simply telling us that women can't make it just isn't good enough. There's clearly inherent lack of women in current positions of power, and even the girl boss initiative, this is something that must be addressed, right? So I'll bring you to my substantive evidence now. So as the first speaker, we're talking about how the girl boss culture actively gets women into power and the tangible benefits of women in power, making my second point. And my second speaker will be talking about how we empower the feminist movement. So firstly, I'd like to provide some context. So clearly there's a fundamental lack of incentive for women to actively pursue positions of power, right? It's difficult for them to envision themselves actually fulfilling these positions of power. An example which I like to provide is the Scandinavian countries, which of all Western countries poured huge amounts of money, rebuilt societal structures to create an egalitarian society, right? They've done all they can to equalize the opportunity for women. However, the outcomes between the roles which men and women actively pursue, following all of this in their careers, still remains much different, right? So we've equalized the opportunity, however, the outcomes which women and men have actively pursued still remain different. What does this mean, right? There's a lack of motivation for women to actively pursue these positions of power as opposed to men, right? And even the introduction of the girl boss initiative has a narrative, has created that fundamental need and want, which is lacked, right? We've provided opportunity, these societies provided opportunities, they poured the money into creating an egalitarian structure. However, there's a fundamental lack of women still pursuing these positions of power, right? And on our side of the house, the girl boss initiative has created this fundamental need and want, meaning harnessing these opportunities to create outcomes which leads in a position of influence within society. It's clearly this incentive which is lacked in the past, but the girl boss initiative increases the successful outcomes of women as a whole, as they actively pursue these higher purposes, positions of power within society, right? And that brings me on to my next point. That being the tangible benefit of women in power, right? We've proved on our side how the girl boss initiative actively encourages this, actively encourages women, motivates them to harness opportunity, better themselves, and to pursue higher positions within power, within society, positions of power. And there's a range of tangible benefits which actually come with this on our side of the house. Firstly, being the unique perspective which women can provide, right? Women experience a frequency of events, for example, sexual harassment, which often men themselves aren't exposed to, right? So this allows this increased number allows a successful woman to relate with other females in a way which males themselves couldn't, right? And why is this important? Well, it means that these actual successful women who have made their way into positions of power, made their way into positions of influence, can actively modify policies, modify business practices in a way which benefits and represents all women, regardless of their position within society, regardless of whether they're successful or not. It's a unique benefit which we get on our side of the house, in that there's equal representation of women and creating a direct tangible benefit. And this isn't possible when these leadership positions are male dominated, right? And that brings us to another tangible benefit, and that being the motivational and inspirational aspect of women in power, right? So other women who are making their way through society and creating their path will see these other women who are in fact in positions of power, right? So they see that it is in fact possible for them to be in roles of influence, and this is just a male-dominated system which they can't break through, which they can't make up part of. And then it's this specific female role models which they can actually aspire to be like. So like now women can see that like there's a need and want and encouragement to pursue like individual success and power, which is clearly lacked in the past, right? And then allows them to like utilize opportunities through like their own determination, which is necessary to allow them to like elevate and like harness like the opportunity to elevate for our society. And it is clearly this which is lacked in other countries. So clearly like there is an attraction in pursuing positions of power within men, which lacks in women, right? And like girlboss creates opportunities and like incentives for women, which creates like better representation. That is what we prove on our side of the house. And now more than happy to take a while.
Why can a woman not, just like her male counterparts, want to be a CEO for the salary?
Well, what we've told you is that there's a fundamental lack of incentive, right? Regardless of like salaries, we've provided an opportunity, like we've provided an example where like we've created society has like poured huge amounts of money into creating an egalitarian society. However, women still don't pursue careers with increased levels of power to the same rate as men. Regardless of salaries, there's still a fundamental lack of initiative which is there, and it is that which the girlboss initiative directly incentivizes. It's like allowing women, increasing their motivation and determination to harness the equality to harness their position of power at increased rates of men, at the same rates as men, and then to increase representation across society in the same way that men, the same way which men and women would do. That's unique to our side of the house, and that women can create actual incentive, actual change in the positions of power to then better represent all other women on our side of the house. That is why we're very proud to engage.
I'd like to thank the speaker for their speech and invite up the second speaker for the affirmative team to continue the team's case.
If their whole case is going to be based on the assertion that women don't want to get into positions of power, I don't think that they can win this debate, right? They can't tell us that they want to push girlboss and put women in positions of power, but they also want to equivocally tell us that in equal societies, women don't want to be in positions of power, right? We don't think that the characterization by any means is realistic, but also we think that they are ultimately decided that's uninclusive, right? So what would we like to do in this debate? First of all, I'll clarify what we think is actually beneficial for women as well. Then I'll go into the major issues in this debate on which side is most inclusive, which side actually uplifts women, and then I'll split to you on how this affects women within more conservative nations, especially in terms of the feminist movement, right? So first of all, let's just do some clarification, right? Because they wanted to give you the example of in Scandinavia, everything is equal, and still women are working hard, right? First of all, we think that there are still structural issues that hold back women. But second of all, we think that if women really, they don't want to be all CEOs, we think that's perfectly acceptable. But thirdly, we think that the girlboss thing just necessarily means that these people are even further looked down upon, right? We think that, the extent to which these individuals, truly benefit on the other side. And also realize that their side is the status quo, right? So we don't really see how things have actually changed in their world or actually benefit, right? A lot of their stuff is just solely assertion, right? So that's out of the way. So which side is the most inclusive in this debate, right? We think that this is very key to the feminist movement because the feminist movement is ultimately one that prides itself on including women across the spectrum, right? That's why they have links with the LGBT community. That's why they have links with other movements, right? And we think that to that extent, we think that we've already told you from first why we think that the feminist movement women end up being disadvantaged, right? Because they're the most vulnerable individuals in society. They're the individuals who are ultimately kicked down and excluded from high-paying jobs like law, like politics, because they're not aggressive enough, because they're women and they have all these womenly issues or whatever those kinds of people want. want to say, right? And we think that to that extent, we think that that's the kind of narrative that just is flooded on their side when they start buying into masculinity, right? And realize that they never really tell us how, like, a girl boss suddenly gets more women power. They just say that women become more confident, therefore they get positions of power, but don't realize that the incentives do exist, right? Women are like humans, right? We all want to like earn more money. We all want to uplift our social standing. We all want to buy things, right? We don't think there's any reason why women are suddenly like these alien creatures who don't want to get in positions of power under the status quo, right? What we've told you is that ultimately what we think is these individuals who are actually empowered by girl boss under their side is just equivalent on both sides, right? We think that the whole narrative of strong, confident women is something that's already existed throughout for a long time, and something that where we've seen these women already succeed, right? And we think that it's because one, their traits are the ones that men are looking for, and therefore like it's a sort of mimicry. Two, we think they are both equally qualified in both worlds. But three, even if they want to claim that there is like more confidence or something of that nature, we think that it doesn't really change their employment options and the way that they're viewed, right? But also we've told you about the structural barriers that exist, right? And how these are inherently limiting women across the spectrum, right? When there are structural barriers that ultimately keep women out of jobs, make them less likely hiring prospects, we think that that's the sort of situation in which women are kept out of the workplace, right? And we think that this is increasingly problematic on their side where they do have girl boss, because essentially when all women are told to aspire towards this ideal, we think that in that sort of situation, structural barriers just mean that more women are left in a situation where they are put down, right? Where they are depressed in a situation where they are unable to uplift themselves, no matter how hard they try, right? We don't think that they can just suddenly give women confidence and like fix every societal problem that's existed throughout history. If they want to like only set this debate in Scandinavia, sure, they can win Scandinavia, we'll win the rest of the world, right? So second of all, we're trying to uplift women, right? So we realize that what we want to do on our side is to uplift our women as a whole, like following like consistent feminist narratives that have existed previously, right? About changing the way that women are treated, the way that they view in society, all these sorts of things. Why do we think this is effective? Well, we've already told you, right? We believe that the major thing that we have that they don't is collective action, right? When their side solely focuses on individualism, and these women trying to uplift themselves in the detriment of everyone else, especially in the more like cutthroat business world that we think exists, but also because they have to emulate the more aggressive male style of being successful, we think that to that extent they are unable to get a situation where women are likely to uplift other women, right? So even if they get like a few women in positions of power, we've already told you why that's equivalent, but also these women don't necessarily benefit the feminist movement in any major way. Everyone else who doesn't get into positions of power are still suffering. Well, because on our side, it's we get situations where maybe in the worst case scenario, like it takes a longer period of time, like sure, we have to like shift societal things. But what we already told you is that there is a lot of pressure for the feminist movement. We think there is these sorts of views are starting to change over time. And what we also tell you is that when you start including all these women and collectively they're working together to try and uplift one another, we think that these women who are like strong and independent on our side are more likely to uplift other women, right? We think that these women are going to look to constantly climb the social ladder. They're going to look at like how can I help the other women in my community, right? They're going to look towards the feminist movement. They're going to try to uplift one another. We think that's the kind of cohesive feminist movement we want. Lastly, going into my split, how we think this affects feminist movement conservative arguments. But before that,
Yeah, so you've told us that, like, the summaries are saying that all humans have an incentive for success. So then why are there more women in positions of power as opposed to men?
Well, we've told you there are structural barriers, right? We've told you that women are like kept out of office. But literally when Hillary tried to get presidential office, what occurred was she was essentially told that, oh, she's going to be too emotional. She's going to have a period and just like get angry. She's going to have to go on maternity leave, right? Like all these sorts of issues that ultimately like make women like less objectively like worse prospect in the eyes of individuals. And these sorts of issues we want to get rid of, right? But also because of like the historical like societal narratives that surround women, right? We don't think that that's a valid argument, right? So lastly, in this split, why do we think that this is especially harmful to feminist movement in conservative societies? Well, from a like ivory tower in the West, you can say that masculine women are perfectly okay and we accept all these things. Realize that in the modern global society, where the feminist movement is heavily based online, we have a situation where within more conservative nations, we think that these sort of things become a lot more questionable, right? So there's two parts of this, right? Why is this girlboss thing so globalized to the point that even if it is detrimental, we think the feminist movements overseas will still latch onto it? But second of all, what is the impact of all this, right? So three reasons for why it's globalized. First of all, the internet being the main domain, and the feminist movement just mainly coalescing on places like Twitter and Facebook and all these other social media platforms. Second of all, we believe that Western media is very highlighted and idealized and just part of mainstream culture, right? We think that that's where a lot of people find interaction with the feminist movement, and all these ideas are pushed forward, and generally people look towards the Western platform as the ideal, and that's where they get their ideas. Thirdly, we think that women use the internet to also discuss their traumas and find closure within these sorts of things, so they're very heavily reliant on this, and they also idealize and look towards that version of the feminist movement, especially when they talk to more like liberal women who live within these countries and can actually express these sorts of things, right? So this is the reason why I think that all these more conservative women in more conservative countries might look towards the West and copy this similar girlboss thing, right? How does this cause problems? First of all, realize that while under our situation it's fine to have masculine women within society, realize in countries like Malaysia, for example, if women were to act more masculine, when you have this situation where they'd be outcast by society, they'd be looked down upon by the men around them, they'd be seen as women essentially not fulfilling their roles, right? But second of all, we think that women also are alienated, right? These individuals may be born from different social situations, different backgrounds. We think that these women just cannot relate to girlboss to the same extent, and we think we just remove the movement from them. But last of all, we think that it just makes a situation where the movement is just unviable, where individuals trying to do these things are looked down upon by society. For all these reasons, we didn't reform this debate. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the speaker for their speech, and I'll invite the second speaker from the negating team to continue the team's case.
team told us that girlboss culture cannot possibly help women attain positions of power because there are so many structural barriers in existence. The example they gave us is that they told us Hillary Clinton didn't win due to the structural barriers of voters thinking she would be emotional on her period or go on maternity leave while she was president. And this is the point at which they literally lost the debate, right? Because elevating women into positions of power through girlboss culture literally demonstrates to society that these things are patently false, right? Because when Jacinda Ardern brings her baby to UN meetings, is successfully Prime Minister, even while she's on maternity leave, and maintains like a successful presidential run, we think that literally demonstrates that those structural barriers are eliminated when women demonstrate that they can successfully run a position of power, right? We think that the concept that women are too emotional in their periods to actually think of things logically is disproven at the point at which we have female CEOs successfully running some of the largest companies on earth and still successfully, demonstrating to the population that their periods or their pregnancies were no barrier to that whatsoever, right? So at the point at which their structural barriers were literally able to be demonstrated to be patently false at the point at which we got women in power, they literally lost their entire debate. Two main points of clashing today. Firstly, on the tangible impacts for women when there are more women in power. Secondly, on the wider impacts on the feminist movement, followed by anti-radical rebuttal on my split on how we empower the feminist movement at large, right? So on this first point of clash, they basically told us that outside the house undermines feminist narrative, right? Because they basically told us that viewing the success of women as feminists means it must be inherently cutthroat, right? And we thought it was very strange that their feminine team assumes that women who associate their success with feminism must necessarily be cutthroat, right? We think that's just a stereotype that they've elevated in their side house. We think it's frankly ridiculous for them to say that they're not allowed to show empathy in the workplace or they actually cannot collaborate just because they view their success as feminist, right? It's frankly ridiculous, right? Because collaboration, teamwork, and communication skills are actually increasingly valued in workplaces. And we think it's just dishonest for them to claim that women cannot achieve success, and unless, like they said, they literally never collaborate with anybody else. Absolutely patently false. For women to be successful, for most people to be successful, they have to collaborate with others as well. We think it's just frankly untrue on their side of the house. We also think it's ridiculous for them to uniquely think that women must be cutthroat to survive, right? Because we've seen many women attain positions of power by actually using empathy, by using communication skills in the workplace. We think it's just frankly ridiculous for them to say that on their side of the house. They also told us that the workplace is an inherently hostile environment due to things like harassment, and that girlboss culture cannot possibly help us, right? We think it's pretty ridiculous that the Feminist team wants to divorce successful women from their own lived experience, right? Because we see that women in all positions have perspectives that men will never have, and are able to more deeply sympathize with women's struggle. But to actually translate this sympathy into action, it is crucial for women to identify themselves with feminism. So it's very important to note that girlboss culture is crucially powerful because it associates their success, their careers, with a feminist action, right? On their side of the house, there will still be successful women trying to climb, there will be less successful women, but there will be still some trying to climb the ladder of capitalism. They just won't view this success as an actual feminist action. They won't even identify their life story with feminism on their side of the house. That's what they lose on their side of the house. Only outside the house gets the unique benefit of associating the careers of successful women by identifying it with the feminist narrative. Only on our side of the house do we achieve that. But even if we were to say that girlboss culture doesn't motivate women in power to help other women any more than it's pivotal, the increase in the sheer number of women in power, facilitated by girlboss culture, is actually vitally important to tangibly improving the lives of all women. So what does this actually look like? We've seen examples in things like the Houston airport, where there was a scandal of male supervisors preventing minimum wage female employees from literally taking bathroom breaks when they were on their periods and humiliating themselves in public. And crucially, it took a female manager to discover this, to promptly demote all these male supervisors and guarantee bathroom breaks and sanitary pads to their employees, literally by virtue of being a woman, by having that lived experience, and by being able to directly sympathize with these minimum wage female employees. They were able to actually make a very tangible change. Because on the other side of the house, they wanted to have kind of this fantastical image of a possible feminist movement that could exist without girlboss culture. Only on the outside of the house do we get immediate, tangible benefits for all these women, where not only do we have more women in power, but these women actually associate their success, associate their careers with feminism, and are actually more likely to act on this. So, continuing on, they basically told us that no other woman but those in power will benefit. Why is this completely wrong? Because we see, just because of the lived experience of women, we see that when someone comes to their manager with a story of sexual harassment, they might have been groped in their own workplace, we think it's much more likely for action to come out if they go to a female manager than a male manager. But not only that, they're more likely to go and speak out about it to begin with, because they're more likely to feel comfortable or receiving of audience when they go to a female manager to start with. Not only does it make it easier for the victim, it also means action is more likely to be taken on their part. We also see things like, CEOs often do things like scholarships, and we see a much higher frequency when CEOs are women of scholarships being put towards, helping lift up women of colour, helping lift up low-income women, to put them into things like careers in STEM, giving them opportunities to actually access tertiary education. That's a unique, tangible, immediate benefit we got on the outside of the house, but not only are there more women in power, but these women associate their power with feminism. Only we should achieve that on our side of the house, right? Now moving on to this point quickly on the feminist movement. So they basically told us that we said that women don't want to get into positions of power or something. First of all, that's just an absolute straw man and manipulation of our own words, right? Because we said that some women do want to achieve highly, but they simply cannot view themselves in power because every single day they're confronted with images of corporate boardrooms of 100% old men in suits. They literally feel intimidated out of it. They feel that they might want to attain that, but there's no possible way because they don't see themselves represented whatsoever having any possibility of achieving that. Only on outside the house do we actually present to these women that yes, you do have the ability, yes, people like you can actually achieve this, and yes, you're actually open to go ahead and pursue this. Yes, at the house they continue the present day brainwashing of women, where we say that, because of all these images portrayed of no women in successful positions of power, they may want to attain higher salaries, they might want to attain positions of power, but they literally feel that society will not allow them to do so. Only outside the house changes that. They also told us that all humans want us to up their social standing. They all want to get high salaries, it's just part of human nature. And it begs the question then, why have women not been able to actually attain these roles? It's literally because of the brainwashing of society, telling them that they're not made for these roles, telling them that their dispositions are not made for these roles. Only when we have more women in power and we have more women associating their careers with feminism and achieving the success, do we actually demonstrate to all of society that that it's completely compatible to be a woman, to be successful, to attain all these roles, right? There's of course this idea of collective action, and it's basically just based on multiple assertions that success in the business world cannot be based on collaboration whatsoever. They never actually explain those deeper lines of analysis as to why this would happen. And we actually are about to do multiple lines of analysis as how women amplify the feminist movement when they're in power, right? They also told us this idea that we somehow exclude stay-at-home moms, but we actually see that girlboss culture is deeply associated with things like choice feminism, and it's literally in the motion that girlboss narratives means viewing women's success as a feminist act, not the only feminist act as they would have you believe, right? It's a feminist act for women to actually get opportunity to be successful. It's not the only feminist act in existence. Completely irresponsible for them to try and score women on their side of the house. So how do we empower the feminist movement? Because on their side of the house, there will still be women who pursue powerful positions for incentives of wealth and influence, but the number of women in these positions will significantly reduce. And vitally, for these rich, successful women, they will not view their success as a feminist act. So what does girlboss culture do to change this? First of all, by viewing their success as a feminist act, women view themselves as standing up to patriarchy and identify their life and lived experience with feminist narratives. So not only does this make this woman more likely to identify as feminist, but they view their career as a platform for feminism. Secondly, having more women as CEOs, as presidents, as directors, means an amplified voice for women at large, right? When people see female CEOs being successful even alongside pregnancies and raising families, not only do they change the narrative for all women being unhireable because of risk of pregnancies, and actually employers start looking at women as actually successful, business representatives and business leaders, but also these women are able to speak up about their lived experience in interviews, in talk shows, and actually articulate to the wider population. And we say this is actually very important for these women to share their own life stories, because a lot of men are just simply unaware of the intense disadvantages and struggles women face. On their side of the house, they basically sacrifice this platform, that very powerful platform women have, and they take away all the tangible benefits that women can experience on outside the house. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank the speaker for their speech, and I'll invite up the third speaker for the affirmative team to conclude their team's substantive portion of the debate.
these structural barriers did try to pursue these positions of power. We don't think they would get in because like the people who are interviewing them, the employers are all of these old white men who sympathize with other white men and are going to like take women, right? We think that even if these disempowered women try to get into it, they wouldn't get into like these high roles, like these really good positions of power, they wouldn't be able to. However, they actually also actively make the problem worse because women who are already like at the highest, most empowered echelon of like all women, like the entire female demographic, when they are able to like get success, the girlboss narrative like pops all of this success and says and like uses it to justify like their own narrative, right? By like trying to use their success to prove that the girlboss narrative works. This also actively takes away incentive to like fix the situation for the actively disenfranchised women. It takes away incentive to make their lives better, to remove these structural barriers. We think that this this already proves to you why our work stands. So how do we get women into positions of power in each of these sorts of ways? So the counter narrative that happens on our side is like really solid for like numerous reasons that Guy already told you, right? But the alternative that we have to see rise is that of like collective action that's made to like the end of like the woman, right? So firstly, there's already a strong societal feminist change. This happened all the way back in like the 19th century. Like we've already seen like women, like the cycle of feminism starting to rise back then. It wasn't because of the girl narrative. Secondly, it empowers women. Thirdly, like individual versus collective, right? And it's mutually exclusive because like the ones who are getting like this feminist change, because like on this, like they put the onus of getting feminist change on the individual being girlboss rather than like acknowledging the structural barriers. Because like disempowered women are like not as socially pursuing individual success, and that's like really dominance, right? And also that is within social capital. What it does is okay, so like I think that this does on our side. When we get like the collective action that arises from our counter narratives, we get like unions and support groups for women. We get women being able to pass like workplace harassment policies to benefit the other women, even with like their own safety, their own quality isn't the one I say. Thirdly, we get like women being able to advocate for like other female applicants. We get like more women into positions of power through that means. We get women being able to fight for each other's salaries. We get women backing each other up in like meeting rooms when a man tries to undermine it. So what are the outcomes of this program? The outcomes is that like on this, I think don't benefit the most disempowered women, the women who like rely on collective action to remove these structural barriers that are actively impeding their path into power and path into progress and path to a better life. They take that action into all the way. Secondly, their girl bosses are also like incentivized to not advocate for other women. They make the lives of disempowered women worse in so many ways. This is the most important point in today's debate for three reasons. Firstly, it's a cross scope, right? Like not only does our collective action benefit all women, including those who are most disempowered and those who are already like being organized, but it also benefits like the vast majority of women. So like the most vulnerable women on the ground, right? The ones that they actively disempower by removing their collective action away from. Ours is also way more like long term because like we actually remove these structural barriers and we think that it's likely to go to be like pretty permanent. Whereas on their side, individual action only lasts and inspires like the individual's own lifetime goals. Finally, like we also think that it's going to be exponential because like they told us that they want women to be able to relate to each other. Clearly, they also want women in power and workplaces too. In terms of equity, like girl-boss narratives only very marginally affect the lives of pretty empowered women. On our side, like we radically change the lives of like a lot of disempowered women. We think that this is the big thing about them. Onto women in workplaces, right? So they told us that like women don't have to do housework. We told you, right from birth, that like pursuing individual success is like necessarily going to like up into the whole masculinity narrative for several reasons. Firstly, the historic precedent, right? Like the whole like adage about like putting yourself up and bootstraps. Like the girlboss narrative sort of like parallels this adage, right? The American dream ideal for like single fathers who are like those sole breadwinner of their family to like work really hard. We think the girlboss narrative parallels that. It feeds into this masculine narrative. There's also like the idolization of men who are socially pursue success. We think it's very parallel to masculine norms. But also how it's structured and presented, right? We told you that about like microcapture. We talked about the social pursuit differentiating itself from generic pursuit, in that it necessarily has to be like it has to like prioritize individual action. So why are women trying to push us under this? Firstly, why is it harmful? Secondly, why do they do it? Opposite and practice us that women are CEOs of some company, and like they take pay parental leave. It's like negative ethics and reputation. Then there's these social pressures to not do that. Secondly, it's like economic incentive, right? If they brand image numbers, then like they return like this out, right? They come out and do as well. Finally, there's also social pressure to be one of the boys who told you this right after I to gain the respect of their peers, which means that women are going to be advocating for other women under their side. Because of all of these reasons, because we have the women who are most disenfranchised, we have one sort of expected.
I'd like to thank the speaker for their speech, and to conclude the substantive portion of today's debate, I invite up the third negative speaker.
Working class women can't get into business due to the white men sitting at the boardroom. That is the exact words that we heard from the second speaker. And I'm sorry to break it to you, but that's going to happen under both sides. They're still going to face these. These men are still going to sit in this boardroom under the side. There's not going to be like this amazing change that happens overnight. But under our side, what we get is more women sitting next to these people. We get more women in the boardroom. We get a better representation of women than under their side, where they'll suddenly get a good solution. So I'm sorry to break it to you, but more women will be sitting next to these men. Now, two main points of clash in today's debate. The first one being about the tangible change we get from girlboss, and the second one being the potential impact. Now, for my first point of clash, which is about tangible effect. So what have we heard from the negative team today? Well, first of all, we had there were sort of incentives under both sides. Well, look, I've got two main responses to this. The first one being that, look how girlboss actually empowers women. It shows them that they can get into this job. It shows them that a woman can sit at the boardroom. It shows them that a woman can earn more than minimum wage. It shows them that there is an opportunity. These women are role models. For example, a working class woman not seeing many women in power. Under their side, they might not see any woman in the boardroom. But under our side, what we get is we get women in the boardroom. And even if this doesn't necessarily empower this working class woman, it shows them that they can get there. It shows them that a woman can make change in this world, in a world that is full of capitalism, and so it doesn't allow women. Under our side, the girlboss narrative actually has a lot more benefits than negatives. I'll touch on that a little bit later. But my second response is this, is that when women see people in power, when women are in power, they can actually do things to help uplift people. Now, why would they do this? Because they are women. They face the same challenges that these other women face. They're not just going to ignore pregnancies or female products just because it's a cutthroat industry. They're not just going to ignore giving away free products. There's so many examples of as Ronnie pointed out, the female airport worker. She can sympathise for those workers. She's not just going to ignore it because she wants to be the best in the industry. She's going to support people because to get to that position, she has had to collaborate with other people. She's not just going to be I want you to suffer, so I'm not going to give you free female products. If you look at Jacinda Ardern, that is a very good example. Willow J. Klein, they're women who gave free female products to other women. It's not because they want to cut throat, it's because they want to support other women, and they want to get this movement, and they want other women to feel empowered. So they talked about this idea about girlbosses emulate masculinity. Well, first of all, they want to persuade us that women don't want to collaborate, they don't want the best for other women, which is an idea that they've won throughout the case. It's a cutthroat industry, no one wants to work with any women. But as we prove you down the line, this is completely wrong. They get there through collaboration, they get there through working with other people. It's not like they're going to be I want to be the best, I want to sit on the boardroom next to all men. They want other women in that position. They want to sort of work with other women. They're not just going to be hey, I don't want any woman in this position. There's obviously incentives to get them there. Whether they can be role models, when they're in action, they can make change, tangible change for actual women. Under their side, what we get is we don't get women in these positions, or it takes a lot longer. What we get under our side is women getting in there quicker, and the lights are just going out.
I'll pause, yeah.
Right next to you.
Yeah, it's on the screen.
On the screen. Quick start, manual control, remember. So yeah, what we're showing you again and again is that under our side we get more representation, and on their side they don't get as much representation, or it takes a lot longer, and we prefer to have women in power as soon as possible and start making positive change in that area. So what else we've heard from them is that we can't all connect with girlboss, females can't connect with this so-called idealistic girlboss. Well, I've got two main responses to this. The first one being what having girlboss narratives actually do. They've told us that sort of demonizing women means that women see this idealistic, unrealistic idea. Well, what it actually does is it gives them role models, because currently there is no role models. They brought this idea about men, a whole bunch of white old men sitting in the boardroom, and on their side there is no representation. A woman has nobody to really look up to you. They can't really say oh, I want to be like that man. Whereas if there's a woman in power, and if there's a woman sitting in that board, they can look up there and they can say, it's achievable, I can make change, I can get there if I want. Secondly, let's women see other people in boardrooms, and when people are in these boardrooms, they can actually make real change. What else do we get from them? We also have not about every woman. It's not solo focused. It's cutthroat industry. Well, again and again, it's women powers can give more representation. Demonstrate to society that these societal boundaries can be broken. Under their side, what they want is a movement where all people can work together. Yes, that sounds glorious on paper, but that doesn't necessarily come together. You can't just say let's empower all women. You need that change. What girlboss does is it allows women to get into those boardrooms. It allows women to their representation and allows them to sort of get realistic change. So the second point of passion is just about potential impacts. So what we've heard from the affirmative team today is under our side we don't approve social change for women. Well, first of all, this is actually completely wrong, because what it does is it gives women power. It shows them that it is achievable, they can make change, they can get to these positions, and they don't have to just sit there watching a whole bunch of white men in a boardroom. They've talked about economic interests are most important. They're not going to care about all these different changes. Well, we believe that's not true. Why? Because these women know the challenges that other women face. They can sympathise with these challenges. They've gone through maternity leave. They've gone through their periods and stuff. They know that there's problems and challenges that they can face, and they know there's solutions that they can help with other people. It's not true that they just go, we're not collaborating with everyone. Because it's true, they collaborate. A lot of women, not especially, I didn't need to say that, but a lot of women show empathy and empathise with other women. They're nice, they're kind, these sort of different things. We've also heard that we have emphasis on individual, not just pushing against reforms. But even if they talk about their lives, on television, on CNN, it applies to all women in all of society. They face these same sort of things. For example, as Warren brought up, if a woman goes onto CNN and is a CEO and they start talking about the sexual harassment they face, this helps all women. It makes it sort of normalise it, not normalise it, but normalise changing the problem and making good, positive change. It helps all women. Because one woman telling their story helps other women through the telling of their story, because it allows them to sort of see that people in power have gone through problems or challenges that they may have faced, and they can overcome them and sit in powerful positions. They talked about how they don't uplift other women, but again and again, this is the same sort of idea that they brought up with. But this is completely wrong. Girlboss narratives have led women leading in change. Yes, they may want to make economic change, but they won't ignore prejudice and female words. No, not just one. 2 seconds, I'm just going to finish this. They talked about a collective action on their side. Well, when you take away the platform for women to talk about these different things, for women to get the power, what it does is it sort of makes it not normal. It makes it they don't have representation. They don't have the platforms to really talk about this. One prominent woman who talks about this, speaks out about these problems or challenges that they face, and they can get collective action. Under their side, what we get is we don't get women having these opportunities. We don't get women as often having these platforms, and we believe that is hugely detrimental to both the feminist movement and to females in general, because we want a platform where women can see women in high offices, that they can see that they can get there, and there's different ways. We want all people working together to sort of help benefits feminism. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank the speaker for their speech, and as is customary, I'll reverse the speaking order to invite up the negative leader to present the reply.
outside of the house gave you many very real, immediate, direct impacts for every single woman in society that are achieved, that are tangible for real women's lives when we actually get more women into positions of power and when we actually associate these women's successful careers with a feminist identity. They're working on their side of the house to sacrifice every single one of these direct benefits for this very weakly demonstrated, weakly articulated image of an alternative collective action that was never actually explained why it is so immediately going to be catalyzed on their side of the house and it's so mutually exclusive from outside the house. Three main points of passion today. Firstly, kind of on the impacts of the feminist movement, secondly, on the tangible impacts on women, and then also this point of clash on will more women attain positions of power. So actually to start with this point of clash on will more women attain positions of power, right? Because they said that associating success with feminism and promoting women going towards equal opportunity, towards positions of power, positions of influence, they said that this would never be possible because of all the structural barriers in existence. The examples down the line they gave of these structural barriers were things like, the demonization of feminine emotionality and something, like the association of women with irrationality, and things like emotionality at periods, and going off work, for things like maternity leave, marking out your entire career. What we told you is that girlboss culture actually demonstrates that all of these stereotypes associated with women are patently false, right? We told you that having more women power actually literally dismantles all these negative associations, all these negative stereotypes that they literally said were the main structural barriers preventing women from accessing these opportunities to begin with, right? And then we said that they told us that even if women are... Sorry, can I grab some water quickly? Sorry about that. So they told us that even if women are inspired to apply for jobs because they see, representation in everyday life when girlboss cultures occurs, that they'll just be rejected by boardrooms of all white men suits, right? But we said firstly, let's look at the comparative to this, right? Because even in their world, this is an even worse fact, right? What do we change on outside the house? Outside the house is the one that actually changes the composition of these very boardrooms that are excluding women from accessing their opportunities, right? Outside the house is the one that actually means that these boardrooms are not dominated by just all white men in suits, right? We're the ones that actually change this one outside the house. Thirdly, we say that not only are there going to be more women in these boardrooms, but crucially, these women that are there are going to associate their careers and associate their life stories with the feminist identity, because that's literally what the motion says, right? Girlboss is associating their careers, their success, with a feminist act, right? Only on outside the house do these women actually associate their life stories with a feminist identity. Why is this so important? Because we see that even if the majority of the boardrooms are going to still be male, we still get benefit anyway, right? Because it directly contradicts the narrative that women are too emotionally unstable to hire for important roles. When the CEO of a company is a woman, when they're prominent women leading roles in society, that directly contradicts all these negative stereotypes that they don't have on their side of the house, right? So, what you see at the end of this debate, right? We gave you tangible and contextual women. We gave you examples of female managers providing bathroom breaks and period products for minimum wage women. We told you that scholarships are allocated to uplift vulnerable women. We told you that women feel much less intimidated when they want to go forward with stories of sexual assault, and that action is much likely to be taken on behalf of them. They never responded to all these tangible and immediate benefits to women. They basically said, we're willing to sacrifice all these actual things that help people's everyday lives for this weekly demonstrated alternative collective action. Why did we show you this collective action is not mutually exclusive to their side? We told you that they actually take away a very prominent and powerful platform for women to speak up about these issues and amplify the society with life stories of their struggles, because they associate their life stories with feminist identity. These women, due to girlboss culture, are going to stand up and associate their careers and their struggles in gaining those careers with a feminist identity. They're going to publicize that to society. We also said that it takes just a single prominent woman relating to their own lived experience on a talk show with sexual harassment that can literally catalyze the collective action they claim was only possible on their side. We very much do not want to, sacrifice all the benefits we demonstrated down the line for this very weak flimsy idea they have on their side of the house, and we'd much rather give power to women in the actual real life here and now. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank the speaker for their speech, and to conclude today's debate, I welcome up the affirmative leader.
we stood back and we looked at all women. We looked at the woman who's afraid of joining a corporate because her ideas about collaboration are going to be laughed at, like both the men and the more aggressive girl-boss women in those boards. We looked at the women who saw other women in the workplace, to be competed against as individuals on the quest to get to the top and to fulfill this girl-boss fantasy. Or even the woman sitting at home who's told that she's not a good feminist because she doesn't own Louis Vuitton, she doesn't own a Northland, and she doesn't own a New York penthouse. These are the most important women in today's debate. 3 questions. Firstly, about incentives acting on women. Secondly, on the feminist movement. Finally, on workplaces. The next main thrust was that the girl boss movement acted as an incentive for these women to get in, which didn't already exist. We already told you about other incentives. We don't think women are so diametrically opposed to men that they can't just overcome these things by things like salary. We told you again about how this girl boss narrative actually reinforces, acts more to reinforce things for women who are unlikely to do this anyway, and they perform and then they go into this. But sadly, we just tell you that it's a business success, which is the narrative. But crucially, all these incentives only act on the women who can actually see themselves in that girl boss movement, who see themselves as assertive, who see themselves as those aggressive women who don't necessarily want to collaborate, who want to be individuals. On their side of the house, you uniquely disempower the women who don't fit into that narrative, because they don't actually see their communication styles on boards, even if they're it's a woman there. We give you structural analysis about how women want to be one of the boys, and they're not going to go on a crusade on that board, because they're adapted to fit into that very masculine environment. Only we are able to change it. But why are these women the most important? We tell you that they're women who fit into the girl boss narrative. They're privileged under the status quo compared to these other women because they do have access to things like boards. They're not sitting at home. But secondly, this is just a wider subset of women. It's so important to know how small their benefits accrue to. Crucially, they needed to win this point and to provide they actually got more people on those boards, in those workplaces to win this debate, because that's where all the impacting about women in power being good. We're having to report that because we get more women in the workplace because it's more comfortable for them, because their communication styles, their ways of doing things are actually respected, they're evolved. Now, on the feminist movement, they wanted to tell us this top-down approach about dismantling stereotypes. We gave you analysis down the line about how you necessarily don't dismantle those stereotypes, because even the women who do succeed are only able to succeed at the point at which they act like men. We told you down the line about how this necessarily means that there's still that perception of more traditionally masculine traits being better. That's really harmful for that feminist movement. They never responded to that. One thing they never responded to, Valentino's split about the developing world. We think that's really important material into this debate, because a lot of the world is developing. We don't all live in in countries like New Zealand and the US, and these women are uniquely vulnerable in that developing world because they're at a early stage of feminism. They wanted to tell us here that when people succeed, that it's going to be seen as a win for the feminist movement. We just tell you that it's an individual success. That's in the info slide. It's a prioritization on that individual. It's their successism meant incentives we told you to appear one of the boys to not be this feminist icon. Finally, on workplaces. We actually evolve and change the nature of workplaces. We were all on from the bottom up level, where all the benefits wanted to be top down. But we already told you why you're not going to get that top down things in the boards, because we don't have those incentives. Just on the Jacinda example, we think there's a lot of criticism that goes into bringing that baby to that UN, and we know that she actually hasn't changed those social barriers, and we think that that's not going to change anyone's minds. We promise.
I'd like to thank all speakers for their speeches and congratulate both teams for a great debate. I do not invite you to cross the floor and shake hands. There was a change in policy overnight. Give each other a round of applause or something.